Hey guys, so sorry it's been so long since my last video. For those who never got a chance to see my last video update, which is pretty much my most recent video before this one, I had foot and ankle surgery on July 1st. And what that video update was about was basically just me saying, hey, I'm not going away, but I am going to be kind of taking a break for a little bit to kind of let my recovery have more than a couple of weeks to kind of let myself recover and things like that. So basically, what this video is going to be, and what probably is going to be the next series of videos are going to be, is basically me doing little mini reviews of some films that I've got to see so far over the course of my recovery. I actually still am recovering. I can hopefully give you a shot of my bike right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. This is my little knee scooter I've been using to get around with ever since my surgery. I apologize, it's not the full shot. That's just the camera I'm using for this video. But that's kind of what I've been up to over the past several weeks. I should say over the past month and a half now. But this is basically an opportunity for me to basically let you guys know what films I've been watching over the course of my recovery. And then probably in a different 2 or 3 part or more than that video, I'm going to do a different segment regarding kind of the documentaries and TV shows I've been watching over the course of my recovery. So things have been going well. I actually have quite a bit of films to talk about with you guys, so this segment will probably be much longer than the one about documentaries and TV shows. So let's get started. Like I said, these are just little mini reviews. I apologize that these aren't kind of full-blown, regular format reviews of movies that I normally review in the format that you're used to seeing, but this is kind of an opportunity for me to let you know kind of what films I've been watching and kind of my brief thoughts on each film and my rating and everything like that. So it'll basically just be little mini reviews of what you're used to seeing. So let's get started because, like I said, I do have quite a bit of films to talk about in this first segment for you guys. So the first film I kind of got around to seeing in my recovery was Raya and the Last Dragon from Disney. I thought this was an okay film. Basically, long story short, it's about a girl who's a warrior princess, lives in this like apocalyptic wasteland. Um, there's these dragons that once existed in this world, and there's only one of them left. So she has to track down this last dragon to basically put things back in order, so the world's not kind of this apocalyptic world anymore, and things like that. So that's basically the simplified version of the plot for that movie. But I thought the character writing was very good in this movie. I really liked Raya. I liked the dragon that she recruited for this journey. I like this little boy that she teams up with who kind of wants to do this restaurant boat business of some kind. I liked kind of this woman character that the dragon turns into throughout the movie. So character-wise, it was fine. You know, you like the mom, you like the dad of Raya, you like the people that are kind of on Raya's side in this journey. So the character writing part was good. It was a funny film. Awkwafina voices the dragon character in this movie, and she has a lot of good laughs in the movie. There's some really good visuals in the film, as most Disney films are, specifically in their animation department. I think where the film kind of fell flat for me a little bit was the Disney story itself was a little generic this time around. It did feel like something you kind of would see 100 times before in other warrior princess films from Disney. It did feel like something you would have already seen in like Pocahontas and Moana and Lilo and Stitch and things like that. Nothing really felt fresh for me in this movie either. There was really nothing too new about it. So I would give Raya and the Last Dragon a 7.5 out of 10. There's a lot of enjoyable things about it, but it does kind of fall flat in the originality department, which is too bad because Disney marketed this film as an original movie. But at the same time, it is kind of a story we've seen 100 times before. So I thought that aspect of the film was a little disappointing, even though the character writing and the visuals are very good in the movie, as well as the humor. Another film I got to see in my recovery was a film called Private Parts. This is kind of a semi-autobiographical story of the life of Howard Stern and how he got started in a career in radio. Very funny movie. Shows just how long it took for him to get his radio career up and going, and kind of all the trial and error experiments he had with radio stations leading up to what basically became his career. And it's kind of interesting to see how Howard Stern did get into radio and kind of what got him interested in it. They do go over kind of his early parts in life of how he got interested in doing it and how he wanted to use his voice as kind of a guide to letting society know how he felt about things and letting people kind of express their honest opinion on things in the movie and things like that, and how he incorporated that into real life and his career. Unfortunately, for my negatives with Private Parts, though, I thought it kind of had a traditional story structure to it. There was a lot of easy way outs for the story. It did feel kind of like a happy ending. It had kind of a by the numbers love story with the woman that became Howard Stern's wife later in life. And there's really no plot surprise. It's one of those things where if you know a lot about Howard Stern already, you're not really going to learn a lot more about it. I know he's kind of covered in several different episodes of his show, kind of how he got into radio and what got him big, how he got to meet the people that he got to co-star with in radio shows, kind of how he got his own radio show and how he became so big and things like that. So there's really good things about Private Parts. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed the film, but go into it knowing if you know a lot about Howard Stern already, you're not going to really learn much more about him. But if you're like me and kind of know a little bit about Howard Stern, but we're interested in knowing more of how he landed radio, it is a very good watch. 8.5 out of 10 for me. And it's also very funny. Another film I got around to seeing was a film called Waiting for Guffman. For those who know who Christopher Guest is, you know, he's done stuff for SNL. He's very big in the improv scene with comedy. The improv scene with the comedy genre and film. It's basically kind of like it's kind of like how the show Modern Family is filmed, where they're making it look like you're seeing something that is kind of like a behind-the-scenes look of something big, but it's just really how the film was chosen to be filmed. It's kind of how this play got started in this small town. Really funny movie. For my positives and negatives for it, it was funny. It was funny in a different kind of way. It wasn't one of those movies that relied on like fart jokes or things that are like easy to weigh out to get a good laugh in the movie. It does choose jokes that are kind of that make you think about the things that are happening in it, and it does kind of have a funny way of showing this fictional town and how it works and kind of how the plays in this town are a big deal, and how this guy that Christopher Guest plays is how he's so big in the town and how he gets all these plays made and things like that. It does kind of have an acquired taste of humor in the movie. Like I said, it doesn't rely on fart jokes or things that are easy to get a laugh on. It does kind of do jokes that make you think about the things that are happening in the movie and things like that. It has an interesting documentary style to it, an interesting behind-the-scenes look to it. It's not just a traditional Hollywood-made movie. They actually did kind of make it look like a home movie in certain scenes. For my negatives with it, though, it was kind of predictable. It has a very loose kind of plot just because so much is improvised in the movie. Christopher Guest lets his cast and crew improvise a lot of the stuff in the film. And certain parts of the story I thought dragged on a little bit too long longer than they should have. So for Waiting for Guffman, I would give that an 8 out of 10. Another film I got around that's actually a newer film, and I got to stream it through Disney Plus during my recovery, was Black Widow from Marvel and Disney. Okay film. I really like the Marvel films. I think that's maybe why I was a little bit let down with this movie, is because they have made so many good films, you know, like Avengers Endgame, Iron Man 1, Doctor Strange. They made a lot of stuff that I really liked over the years. Black Widow, I thought, I don't want to give it away for those who haven't seen Avengers Endgame yet, but they're not going to do a lot more with the Black Widow character based on what happened to her in Avengers Endgame. This film very much is before Avengers Endgame. In fact, I think it's after Captain America Civil War and before Avengers Infinity War, so it's kind of right in between those two films in the Marvel timeline. It focuses on kind of her childhood and who she grew up with and who she has stayed in touch with over the years, who she's gotten close with in Russia, and kind of this side mission she took on in between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. And kind of all these other characters that quote-unquote go by the name Black Widow as well. For this film, though, I thought the family dynamic of the hero characters was strong in the movie. David Harbour has a role in the film. Rachel Weisz has a role in the film. A lot of people like what Florence Pugh did in this movie. She's dating Zach Braff right now, I think. So I like what they did with the hero characters. I like the family dynamic between them. They have great screen chemistry whenever they're working together on the same frame and things like that in the same scene. But I think where Black Widow fell a little flat for me is the action scenes are pretty weak in this film. There is two villains in the film that really don't work for me. They feel very cartoony. They have a very stereotypical, what would a Russian person sound like kind of vibe to them. There's a lot of scenes that drag out in this film, and that's really too bad because most Marvel films are very fast paced and entertaining, and they never really drag. This film kind of dragged a little bit, unfortunately. There's a lot of scenes that get very boring in the movie. Um, I would have liked to have seen more scenes with Black Widow growing and developing as a character. Um, and that one's kind of more of a spoiler, so I can't say my last comment. But I thought based on what happened to her in, so I'm trying to figure out how to say this without giving away Avengers Endgame, but it's a nice send off for where she might go in future Marvel movies, I guess is a nice way to say it. But I thought for being that approach to this movie as this is kind of the direction that Black Widow will be treated in the future kind of thing. Um, it kind of sort of worked, but it kind of didn't. So I would give Black Widow a 7.5 out of 10. There's nice things about it, but for a Marvel movie, I think it is a little lackluster for me. It really didn't work in all the departments. So 7.5 out of 10 on that one. One film that I have seen bits of over the years, but I finally got to see it in full during my recovery, was the original cut of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. This is the original 1968 version from way, way back in the day. This is the very first Night of the Living Dead film that George Romero ever worked on. Very effectively creepy. Very much a character piece on survival instincts of how somebody would survive or would try to survive a zombie apocalypse like that. Made on a very impressive low budget. I did some research on this movie after I watched it. I guess it was made on an extremely low budget. There was a lot of volunteers that they found for the actors and actresses in this movie. They found like meat shops and things like that for on the scenes where they're trying to make it look like the zombies are eating flesh and things like that. For my negatives, though, there really isn't a lot of character development. There's actually one character in particular that is basically voiceless throughout the movie, and she really doesn't get a lot to do when she's kind of safe inside this house, or thinks she's safe inside this house when the undead are trying to break inside it and things like that. It is kind of slow in certain parts, so for those who like zombie films but like fast-paced zombie films, this first Night of the Living Dead might not work for you because it is a slower paced movie. They really are trying to make it feel like you're watching something that happened in the 60s with this bad like zombie outbreak kind of a thing. I really like the movie. Like I said, I've seen it in segments over the years, but I finally got to watch it in full recently. I would give this film a 9 out of 10. It's very effectively made from George Romero, very creepy to this day. Very effective zombie film, and I'm not really somebody that really tracks down zombie films very often. So Night of the Living Dead, the original 1968 version, I would give it a 9 out of 10. Another film I got to see during my recovery was the Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas from 2000. So I grew up with the original 1994, I think it was 1993 or 1994 for that first Flintstones movie with John Goodman. Really liked that first Flintstones movie. I think the reason why I avoided them as much as I did over the years was because of the recasting, because this story does take place before that first Flintstones movie. They're trying to do a more younger Flintstones, younger Rubbles kind of approach to the story. So I think that's kind of what kept me away from seeing it over the years, was the fact that I wasn't happy with the recasting choices in it. But for my positives of Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas, I like the Stone Age set designs in the movie. It's in the spirit of the cartoon show. Unfortunately, those things that really dragged it down, and reasons I think what kind of prevented me from seeing it over the years, was that it has a weak plot to it. It's basically just the Flintstones getting invited to Rock Vegas and doing Las Vegas stuff, really. The cast replacements were really not very good in the movie. I thought Barney and Betty were okay, but I really didn't like who they got for Fred and Wilma in the movie. There's also too many themes that are kind of too dirty for kids, I thought. Because Great Gazoo from the Flintstones TV show is in this movie. He's trying to find how like people mate and stuff like that, and they're about the early stages of dating, and there's just a lot of themes in the movie that I don't think a lot of kids would be able to connect with or really understand. And I was kind of shocked that the film still landed a PG rating with some of the themes that they were trying to go with in the movie. So Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, it's okay. The set designs are very good, like the first movie was. You know, the costume designs are still believable. Like, you still believe that Fred Flintstone's outfit looks like something made in the Stone Age and things like that. yeah, it was just I just really didn't like the casting choices and the way that they chose to do a follow up after all those years of just not going with John Goodman and things like that all over again. So that's the end of part one for this segment, you guys. I will be back with part two with more films to talk about with you guys.